I'd like to call to order the Gateway Board of School Directors Study Session Meeting, Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marty, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Byrne.
Present.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Here.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Here.
Mr. Nola.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mr. Ritter.
Here.
Mr. Stubenbort.
Here.
Mrs. Warning.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here. Okay, we're going to go with a couple people called in advance to speak. And the first one is a student. I don't want to kill your name here.
Perry.
So please just say who you are.
Perry Maltoa.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Good evening, my name is Perry Maltoa, and some of you may remember me from the speech I presented in the beginning of the school year about Mrs. Mattis, Mr. Yulitz, and Mr. Hubble's tea program. I currently will be attending 8th grade at the middle school, and I found it very necessary to speak to you all today due to a future decision that alarmed many of my fellow classmates. Our dear physical education teacher, Mrs. Dunsmore, had announced that she will be transferred to Ramsey Elementary School next year. I, along with many, many others, were extremely shocked and surprised by this sudden change. But I'm here today to hopefully make you all reconsider. For all the students that believe they lack physical strength and ability, Mrs. Dunsmore has encouraged them over the years with great enthusiasm to keep them working hard. She also makes her health and physical education classes interesting to keep the attention of us sport teens. I have heard so many compliments on how she uses creative projects when teaching her health students. In addition, I have talked to many students that explain how she helped them enjoy staying healthy and active. Her optimism inspires many others, including myself. She not only gives students that extra encouragement and drive to love exercising and staying fit, but she is always there for them when they need emotional guidance. Especially the girls in my school feel close to her, and we trust her with any personal issues. I have witnessed many times she has calmed students down and supported them with her helpful advice. She is always so understanding and easy to talk to, and she is one of the few teachers that students come to for guidance. The future teens of the middle school need Mrs. Dunsmore's support. Mrs. Dunsmore is always there to control the hectic atmosphere, and we all love her for what she contributes to our school. I have heard many stories of Mrs. Dunsmore's support and the balance she brings to many students that need it. Not only do her classes present easier learning techniques that assist every student, but they also provide students with the extra encouragement to perform athletic tasks. No matter the circumstance, she stands behind those students that don't take pride in their athletic abilities, while at the same time, she searches deeper to make improvements for those who do take their sports and exercise seriously, or even competitively. Some students may even wish to become advanced athletes and earn scholarships or careers, but they will not improve without the right amount of time and practice throughout the day. So cutting the physical education period will not be supporting the dreams of determined athletes. Along the way, Mrs. Dunsmore hints valuable life instructions that students incorporate in their daily lives. I know one I have learned that was inspired by her. You need to have courage to give things a shot, because otherwise there will never be knowledge. And still to this day, I use it during difficult or even simple situations. I know, as well as others, that it would be an awful shame if the future teens of the Gateway Middle School missed out on her enthusiasm, drive, and wisdom. Not only do we need Mrs. Dunsmore as an inspiration, but we need the exercise and activities that she offers. Many students rely on the physical education period to blow off some steam and release negative tension that have been built up inside them throughout the day. Some people find exercise as a reliever of stress and an opportunity to cool down. I live through the halls, witnessing students that just need a break. Too much stress will cause anxiety problems in their future. It is important that students don't get too overwhelmed, causing them to fear school. But most students just need time to relax and cope with their issues by participating in interesting and physical activities. It is utterly important to inform young students with the importance of physical and mental health. Indeed, the students of Ramsey would be so lucky to have Mrs. Dunsmore, but us teens need her more. We need her support, love, encouragement, and strength. We need physical education, and of course, Mrs. Dunsmore. Thank you all so much for your undivided attention. I greatly appreciate it. I truly hope you will consider my speech and rethink your decision. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Before you leave, did you write that
Yes.
by yourself?
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very well done. Jeff
Craig.
Krakoff Communications. Please come up to the podium.
It's a hard act to follow, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm afraid. That was pretty good. So Dr. Short asked me to talk a little bit about communicating with the community, the importance of proactive communications, public relations. You'd also asked me just to bring samples of some of the work we've done for some other school districts. There are some examples of annual reports, publications. So basically, you know, if you do a scan of any school district, Gateway is no different. What do you find in the news?
Negative.
At least 80% negative. I think that's the news in general. But when it comes to school districts, again, we work with several school districts. You're not alone. So it's that much more important to basically set, develop, maintain your own brand, your own identity, your own narrative. So the idea here is to have ongoing magazine that's written, distributed to the community. It's got everything from what students are doing, your faculty, administrators. There's just so much positive here. We've had a couple of meetings leading up to this. And, you know, I think it's almost an untold story around the greater Pittsburgh area. So you've got the eastern suburbs when people are making decisions, where do we move, where do we stay, where do we raise our families. But I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with the company you keep and some of the rankings out there, where the high school and the lower grades as well. So I think there's a whole lot we can do here positively. And I think a good first step is regular communication. And again, it's not just, don't view this as, well, gee, there's spin. A lot of people, I hate that, use the term PR alongside of spin. There's no spin here. You've got a lot of great stories, they're just not maybe bubbling to the surface. Definitely through the media, and maybe directly as well through the community. So again, our starting point is we have talked, is an ongoing periodic magazine that highlights everything good happening within the district, where the district is going, the strategic plan moving forward, and an annual report, which most districts do. And it's not, obviously it's the financials, it's taxes, it's the budget, but a big part are recognizing and celebrating what all of your people are doing good, whether it's students at all levels, whether it's board members, faculty, teachers. So basically, I want to make myself available to see what questions you have. And
just to give the public an overview of how this originated. Myself and board member Cerrucci had conversations going back probably 6 months about the constant negative barrage of media attention, just not only focusing on the Gateway School District, but public schools in general. And I think anytime you turn on the news, you're going to see something negative. Whether or not it's Gateway, I mean, the superintendents around the region, just talk about who's next, instead of getting out that public positive image that a lot of school districts offer today. And we felt that, in order to rebrand the district, that we felt it was important to bring in someone that can collaborate with us. We get constant barrage of emails from our staff, our teachers, who highlight the acknowledgements, awards that our children have won, Perry, information that's relayed from different events, and we need to make that a more visible part of what we do here. And through a number of different circuits, we got connected to Krakoff Communications. We've had probably 2 or 3 different meetings, kind of narrowing in on what we want to highlight. And Jeff, coming from the South Hills, whenever I showcased and highlighted some of the awards and scores, was amazed at what we were doing and accomplishing here compared with, the schools that he's familiar with out in the South Hills, Bethel Park, Redmond, Upper St. Clair, et cetera. And Gateway being in the top 10 high schools in Allegheny County, definitely struck a chord with him as being something that we need to get out there. And I think we would all agree that we're not doing our best job in getting that information out there. So that led us to conversations about encompassing this kind of periodical to ensure that we get that good news out there.
Do you have any questions for us?
I don't, again, we've had some extensive conversations, probably 3-hour or more long meetings. I think that the key thing are just finding all those great stories. In some of the school districts we work with, we'll actually have somebody on site a day or two, because that's where you find out what's going on. You sit down and talk to people in the schools. So I think it's really setting up a process to find out, how do you get all those great stories? How do you represent the entire community? How do you represent all the grade levels? But, I've done a lot of research on the district. I can tell you, you'll see from the packet, some of the districts we work with right now, if you look at the business times, if you use that as a barometer, South Fayette has been #1 for a while. We deal with Upper St. Clair, North Allegheny, Avonworth. You have some things going on here that are every bit as positive or more. And I think actually even bigger picture, you have a lot of opportunity just from a positive PR standpoint. Because I do think if you look around the city, people are used to saying, Fox Chapel, they're good. North Allegheny, Pine Richland, a lot of those districts, Upper St. Clair. And I think people don't think enough. People think here in the community as they should, but I think it's a really untold story. And from somebody who's doing PR, media relations for 3 decades, the media are looking for that kind of thing. When you get a reporter scratch their head and said, wow, didn't realize this, and we talked about 3 or 4 stories that are in that category that are kind of aha moments that can be pitched. So think about this as a tool to communicate with the community. But also, I would send this to some of the education reporters around town, keep them up to date, maybe pitch some positive stories as well. But I really don't have any questions.
Does the board have any questions?
Well, I'd just like to say, I always like to try to offer a balanced view. So I list the things that are broken, the things that we're working on, the things that were accomplished, some past, some present, the plans. I like to lay the whole picture out. Some of those are good, some of those are bad, but what it does is offer a balance. It lets people know that we have a realistic view of what's working and what's not working. And so what that, I think, does, helps instill in us a trust that, we're not perfect, but we're doing our level best. And sometimes that level of trust can help get a school district over a rough time. So rather than paint a rosy picture, which everybody tends to not believe, I'm a bit more on the melancholy side myself, and so I would, like to have a media expert who could balance all of us out, because we all have good things to say, good things to tell, but not enough time to actually put it together in a cogent package and tell it.
Yeah, think of it as an equity piggy bank. So for all the positive stories, you're making deposits, you're building up some equity. So inevitably in the world of school districts, negative things happen. They're always going to happen. There are accidents, unfortunately, that every company, every nonprofit.
Everybody's the
So
same.
no one's immune, but I think it's time to start building up that positive equity, because then when the negative comes out, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, but there's all these great things going on too.
Right.
When the media is focused and everyone's focused on all the bad and not thinking about the good, then obviously
It helps
piggy
build
bank is back up
temperance.
there.
That's right. It helps build temperance, and then that offers us, patience and a way forward. It gives us momentum rather than getting stuck on some things. Okay, I've said enough.
Could we ask George to go on mute, because there's a little chat back that's filtering through? So George, if you could go on mute, please, that would help us in the room here, okay?
All right, any other questions?
No, I just wanted to say, that a lot of people in the community had come forward and talked to me, last year, saying we really need to get positive word out about our school. A lot of people in this community take a lot of pride in their community and in our school. And I think a lot of them are just quite frankly tired of the negative publicity, because they see the things that we've shown you. They've seen not just the fine athletes and the robotics club and the Sea Perch Awards and the agreement that we have for the new technology coming in with Forbes Hospital. There's some really exciting things happening here. And I think we're all pretty much excited to get going and get the word out and really let people in our community and our surrounding communities know what an awesome school district this is, and that we researched and talked to a lot of people. And Mr. Krakoff has a lot to offer for Gateway, and he's only mentioned a couple projects, but he has a lot of resources, he had a lot of experience, and there's a lot of other avenues that we could go with him, if we so find that need in the future. So I'm just looking forward to get going, and thank you, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear? Should I go? Okay. Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just realized
Forget your
that.
That would have made the news.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment on agenda items only?
If we have no one else, would we mind giving a explanation to Perry? I think she did a extremely good job of presenting, and being a recent graduate and speaking to the board before, I know it can be nerve-wracking up here. So could we explain kind of the bumping process, how that's union-oriented, just to shed that light?
Ms. Crumpet, if you can maybe give an overview of this, without mentioning names, how this process worked its way and kind of filtered through.
Gladly. You did a very nice job, very nice. You should be very proud of yourself. With this, the board in June made a decision to eliminate a position. And whenever a teacher, or for that matter, any employee, is impacted by a bump, they are, per the contract, allowed to bid on other positions. So through this process, then what we do is we post any open positions for the school year. Basically, this year I sent out about 15 positions that would be open for bid. Ms. Dunsmore bid on the Moss Side Middle School, so that was a choice that she made so that way she would have a full-time contract. Again, if the board makes decisions at a later time next year to add on positions, she would then have that opportunity again to bid back into Gateway Middle School if that opportunity presents itself. But it is all done by the contract. Have any questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Crumpet.
Anybody else wish to speak on agenda items? Okay, moving forward. Bills and financial reports, Mr. Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Due to the early scheduling of the meeting, the financial reports will be presented at the regular board meeting. Specifically, we'll have a list of bills for July and August on the agenda, and the monthly financial statements for the month of June and July. We will resume budget transfers during the month of October. Thank you.
We don't have anything tabled.
No.
Section D, personnel agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Resolved that the Gateway Board of School Directors accepts and approves the personnel agenda items 1 through 6 as listed in Section D for the regular board meeting of Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. We are asking that these be action items for this evening. We have 6 resignations presented to you. For leave of absences, we have 4 names that have submitted all of their documentation. Per the collective bargaining agreement, we do have 1 transfer. And under Section 4, we have several names that we are submitting for recommendation for employment. The month of July for the administrators and the principals has been a busy time interviewing, and they have done their diligent to make sure that we present to you the most highly qualified candidates that we could find. And we feel very confident In the 4 that we are presenting tonight for contract basis, Kevin McManus would be coming in as a part-time music teacher. That's at Master Step 2. That is going to be a prorated salary. The salary there listed is for a full year, but his as part-time will be prorated to $27,731. Laura Bowser will be going to Mosside Middle School as a special education teacher. Jenna Snyder, special education at Cleveland Stewart, and Amanda Solomon for University Park Elementary. We also have one-year temporary positions due to all the open vacancies that we have. Jeffrey Bowles will be going in as social studies teacher for Mrs. Whetstone, who is on a temporary assignment. Lindsay Rankin will be going into Mosside Middle School for grade 5, and Jessica Kendall will be going in for a music for Miss Dayton. We also have one semester teaching position, and that's going to be recommended to Alyssa Capetta at Ramsey Elementary for 1 semester. So again, that will be prorated at half that 57. We have listed a name for substitute custodian. You will also find under section 5 the supplemental contracts and volunteers. And under number 6, it's a resolution that breaks down the compensation and benefits for the Gateway School Police officers, which was previously adopted on June 21st, 2016, as depicted in Exhibit A.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Nola. Questions, comments?
Are all of these, seeing that these are action items, all of these,
These are not all action items, are they?
Well, we
Yes.
are asking for at least the employment ones to be action items, so we can get them started.
So the ones that you just said were prorated.
How about under section 4? If we can put all those as action items for this evening, we would appreciate that.
Again, I'm not comfortable with the salary if they're gonna be prorated.
Do you want us to give us the exact, because it depends on, it's based on how many days they work in that semester, so depending on how it goes. When they're prorated, we base on their daily rate, then factor that out by how many days they work. So until we actually look at the calendars and what they're gonna work, they may come in 1 day extra, 1 day after. Except for Mr. McManus's, and his is a definite part-time at $27,731.
I just want to make sure everything that we vote on needs to be voted on this evening.
Well, we do have orientation scheduled, new teacher orientation scheduled on the 17th.
So these all need to be approved.
Yeah, teacher and.
Well, and you have to realize, we're in a competitive market right now. We already lost 2 just in the time from interviewing and calling that took positions someplace else. So the longer we wait,
Yeah. No, that's fine. And I know the board has been kept abreast of the issues and have gone things in the board report. But I just want to make sure that everything needs to be, if it's time crunch, then it's fine with me.
if we could do section 4, we would greatly appreciate it.
Did you say, I don't see it, but I heard you say it, the last year's bonus for perfect attendance, is that being voted on tonight?
That is all included in number 6, which is the resolution. And that is included in that resolution packet.
Oh.
Do you want to vote on 4A?
Yeah, I think we need to vote on that because that's from last year's attendance. I don't think we should push that off. I'd like to
break
see
these
that be
down.
an action item since the school year's been over for a
If they all
couple
need to be
months.
voted on, I'm fine with voting for all of them. I just want to make sure that's the case.
So is your motion to
My motion's for everything.
approve everything?
Yeah, that still stands.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Did anybody second that?
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr.
Neil.
Nola did.
We approving item number
All of
6
it.
under the resolution?
Everything.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Seeing none, can we have a roll call?
Mrs. Cerucci.
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich. Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. Nola.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Stubenbort.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll be calling those candidates tonight at the end of the meeting.
Section E, no conferences or conventions. Section F, administrative resolutions. Mr. Short.
Mr. Schott has a number of resolutions here as he's eager and ready to address the board on the issue. So go right ahead, Mr. Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Short. We do have an action agenda comprised of 10 items this evening and also a second Section F non-action agenda items. I will take the first action agenda Resolved that the Gateway Board of School Directors approves and authorizes as appropriate the following items 1 through 10 as listed in Section F at the study session meeting of Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. Item number 1 is the approval of a la carte cafeteria price increases for the 17-18 fiscal year as depicted in Exhibit A. Item number 2 is award of the milk bid to Turner Dairy Farms Incorporated for the 17-18 fiscal year, and that's depicted in Exhibit B. Item number 3 is the approval of a memorandum of understanding between Allies for Children and the district to enhance the district's food service program during the 17-18 fiscal year. That's through a number of donations totaling a maximum of $7,200, and those details are depicted in Exhibit C. Item number 4 is approval of a letter of agreement between Mid-Atlantic Dairy Association Incorporated and the district to enhance the district's food service program during the 17-18 fiscal year, specifically in the form of a donated kiosk valued at $3,499 to expand the district's school breakfast program during the 17-18 fiscal year, as depicted in Exhibit D. Item number 5 is the acceptance of Federal IDEA Section 619 pass-through funds and approval of the use of funds agreement and preliminary budget through the Allegheny Intermediate Unit Number 3 for the 17-18 fiscal year. Funds in the amount of $2,816 as depicted in Exhibit E. Item number 6 is acceptance of Federal IDEA Part B pass-through funds with the Allegheny Intermediate Unit for the 17-18 fiscal year in the amount of $717,199, and that's depicted in Exhibit F. Item number 7 is the agreement for continued participation in the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services administered school-based access program for the 17-18 fiscal year. That is depicted in Exhibit G. Next item, renewal of waterfront learning, which is the district cyber school through the Allegheny Intermediate Unit Number 3 for the 17-18 fiscal year, and that's at the various pricing as depicted in Exhibit H. Item number 9 is the approval to continue telephone services with Consolidated Communications Incorporated as the district's partial telephone service provider for a period of 36 months at the monthly amount of $1,025. That's depicted in Exhibit I. That is for the portion of the emergency telephone lines. Please note that compared to the current agreement, there is a monthly savings of approximately $1,225 per month under the terms of this new agreement. Item number 10 is the award of the written proposal for the Capital Reserve Fund for 2 capital repair projects for a 17-18 fiscal year. Specifically, the press box window replacement in the amount of $37,254 at the high school stadium, and the glass enclosure at the front office counter at the high school in the amount of $6,932 to Boulevard Glass and Metal Company Incorporated. Total amount of both projects, $44,186 through the CoStar's pre-bid purchasing program to be paid from the district's capital reserve fund for a 17-18 fiscal year, as depicted in Exhibit J. These actual prices came in slightly less than what was budgeted by $114.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mr. Steubenport, second by Mr. Nola. Questions or comments?
I had a question on number 8. That's the cyber school platform that we use through the AAU.
Yes.
I know we've done different things with that. I know we've tried, I believe, to do our own. We've tried to look at other schools, teaming up with them. I believe North Hills and North Allegheny does their own, something similar. Have we reevaluated that? Because this is still the recommendation is to go with AIU as opposed to doing our own.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing that, can we have a roll call, Monty, please?
Mr. Lapsevich. Mr. Lapsevich.
What are we voting on here?
1 through 10.
Section F.
Yes.
Is that an aye?
That was it.
Yeah.
That was a yes.
Okay. Mr. Nola.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Steubenport.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Aye.
Mrs. Cerucci?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good, Paul.
Okay, now, Section F for the administrative resolutions for discussion. Item number 1, administration be seeking approval of special education service agreements. First one being with TCV Community Services to provide student assistance program liaison services as depicted in Exhibit A. Second one being through Wesley Spectrum Family Services of Western Pennsylvania as depicted in Exhibit B. Item number 2, seeking approval of facility agreements for PIFAI Tamburitzans for an event on September 24th at the Gateway Middle School Auditorium, cost of $2,525. Item number 3, revised policy number 203 for 30-day public display, which is the communicable diseases and immunizations as depicted in Exhibit C. Item number 4 is the annual exoneration of district real estate tax collectors for 16-17 fiscal year. For the municipality of Monroeville, Mr. Patrick Fulkerson, exoneration of $1,025,039.07. And for the borough of Pitcairn, Sally DeRobio, exoneration of $148,276.21. Again, for the period of July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. Item number 5 is the approval of the Title I, Title II Part A, and Title III federal funds preliminary allocation amounts for a 17-18 fiscal year as depicted below. All those title funds total $895,601. Item number 6 is the approval of quarterly and annual design, editing, and printing services from Krakoff Communications, Inc. during the 17-18 fiscal year, and as depicted in Exhibit D, and was also reviewed by Mr. Krakoff this evening.
Questions or comments on any of those?
I have a question.
Mr. Dahl?
The tax revenues that we are exonerating, both tax collectors, are those then turned over to Ira Weiss and
Correct.
pursued? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Next item is a district donation received, specifically from GE Power Conversion through Brian Newman, office furniture. That was initiated through Kelly Ethorn at University Park Elementary School. This will actually benefit the staff not only at University Park, but also staff throughout the district. Estimated value of several $1,000s for all this various desks, file cabinets. Quite a windfall, and very generous in the part of Mr. Newman making the donation to the district. Item number 8 is seeking approval of agreement with First Steps Driving Schools instructors to conduct the end-of-course skills test for district students enrolled in a driver's education program. That is depicted in Exhibit E.
Questions or comments on the last two?
Well, I have one on the one before.
Okay. Any of them?
Number 6. Yes, number 6 is, yes, George.
Yeah, Mr. President, I had to ask a question before this, but nobody heard me. I think Chad brought up this with the tax collector, that our minimum tax collector was making, whatever the picture tax collector was making, just less than the local tax collector, the collector tax.
He's
George,
questioning the
you-
salaries, I believe.
Yeah, George, you broke up at the end there. You were talking about the tax collector from Monroeville, tax collector from Pitcairn.
Yes, sir.
And what's your major concern about that?
Yeah, Chad brought up about 3 months ago that the picture tax collector was what making a lot, how much, collecting a lot less than the Monroeville tax collector are making how much as much. And we were gonna see if we could make an adjustment on that. Did anybody ever check into that?
Mr. Schott, would you like to answer that one?
Those rates were all previously set. They had to be set prior to the spring primary, so those rates are set for the next 4 years.
I remember, I believe Steve and I
Thank
both
you.
raised that concern, and we
Right.
looked at it, and that's just how it was. So.
I will note that those rates have stayed the same for the last several years. So again, we're having another 4 years, basically at the frozen 0% increases for both those collectors.
Any other questions, George? Let me see if I can get.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, George.
Thank you.
Mr. Nola?
Yeah, back to number 6. I like to always put on, when I see these things, I see this estimated expenditure amount, 25,000. I always like to put on, something to do not exceed or things like that. It's just too vague for me. I don't like it. I don't like them like that.
And that is something myself and Mr. Schott have talked about. The periodical itself, Quarterly Magazine, would not exceed 16 pages. And what we're trying to do is locate a vendor in Monroeville to handle the printing. I felt that was important to keep the operation in-house or Pitcairn. So once we have that information about the price, we would be able to confirm.
I would recommend, until we have kind of a full package of what the actual cost will be, to hold off presenting to the board. So I hate to piecemeal it together. Okay, we're gonna do 25,000. Well, then the printing is gonna cost us $100,000, and we never,
That's all inclusive.
It's all inclusive.
Yeah.
that 25,000.
Correct.
And we
Yes.
utilize the same amount as we have in the
Yes.
budget for 17 fiscal year, so that's.
If you want to call it typeset, formatting, printing,
So we're saying.
that's all inclusive. He's offering us the opportunity to find a vendor in Monroeville or Pitcairn to do the printing.
So we're saying that Mr. Krakoff and the printing and those
You got
things
it.
is all going to be under 25,000.
Not to exceed 25,000.
Okay, well, I would just recommend that verbiage.
We just
change
make it say not to exceed instead
as
of
opposed to
whatever.
an
Okay.
estimate.
What if you can't find somebody in Monroeville or Pitcairn?
He offered up a vendor, or a vendor for that price.
I mean, it's okay to
Yeah.
go to Trafford or.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we can go wherever it's cheaper.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. Just asking, Bill, will you send a letter of appreciation to Brian Newman on the donation?
Yes, we're in the process of doing that. I believe, Bob, was it today that you received?
We had received some shipments, and there's more to come.
Okay, and it's amazing the materials that he has donated. It's very impressive, and we're very thankful for that, so.
You're good?
Any other questions, comments?
One other question, the driving school, have they had this before, Gateway?
Yes, we had it last year,
We have them approved.
and
this-
the
this is-
AIU uses
Yeah, this
this
is actually
company.
something new in terms of being a little more formalized than how we've done in the past. But one of the things actually through Waterfront Learning Platform, there's actually the classroom experience is actually offered through that. So the AIU's actually already partnered with them as well, with a number of other school districts in the area utilizing their services for this end of class test.
Do they have a number of students that you've seen sign up for this?
Not too many, believe it or
Yeah,
not,
we've never
yeah.
seen that aspect of it, but in terms of some of the, what was attached, they have the actual course.
Yeah.
They had to specifically list that as well with the documents they have to file with the state.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the requirements of the process for that complete for any students who'd be interested in utilizing their services.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, moving forward, resolutions presented by board members.
Yes, I'm approving the following language, asking for approval for the following language revisions for policy 808, food services, under the food service safety program section of the policy on pages 5 and 6, and to place the policy on 30-day public display. In order to ensure optimum food quality standards, the district shall adhere to the following shelf life standards. Frozen meats and cheeses, examples ground meat, the ground deli, sliced, shredded, etc., shall be limited to a shelf life not to exceed 1 year from the date of receipt. Pasteurized processed American cheese will be used or frozen for later use by the designated sell-by date. If frozen, the use shall be limited to cooking applications only and have an expanded shelf life not to exceed 6 months from the freezer transfer date. Dry goods, examples of the pasta, raisins, canned fruits, etc., shall be limited to a shelf life not to exceed any best by date or 1 year from the date of receipt if date marking guidance has not been designated.
So moved for the sole purpose of discussion.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Stubenford, second by Mr. Nola. Questions, comments?
A few questions, and Val will just kind of go over the same ones that we had discussed in the policy committee meeting. Do we have any data to back this up?
I'm just going to bring this up. We have discussed this ongoing since October, back and forth.
My question was, do we have any data to back this up?
Data as far as what, Chad?
As far as when we've presented these previously, administrators and individuals in our food service have presented specific data stating that the federal government states our policy is beyond, above and beyond, more strict than any other district in the state, one that actually you voted against. So I'm wondering to change it from 3 years to 1 year if you have any data, because being in academia, I would hope that we evaluate all data and make a decision based off of science and based off of fact. And it clearly appears that that's not the case. So I was wondering if you have any data to support the 1 year claim as opposed to the 3 year claim that has been brought forward by the food service manager.
The data that I have received, I'm going to say it's in line with.
Do I
What-
have a copy of that?
No, I don't have a copies
No,
of them.
do I have a copy of
A
that,
copy of,
of the data that you have?
I don't have, what I'm
Can I
saying
have a
is,
copy of it, please?
I don't have it with me, John.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. What I'm concerned about, I'm worrying about Gateway. I'm not worrying about the other school districts. I'm worrying about we are presenting to Gateway for their students, and that's what I'm going on.
But we have no data to back that up.
No.
Okay. To your knowledge, does any other district in the state have a more stringent policy than we currently have in place?
As I said, I am concerned with Gateway.
And I think having the most stringent policy in the state addresses those concerns. So do you know of any other district that has a more stringent policy than the
No, I
three-year
don't,
policy?
Chad.
No, okay. And if we do this, I know at the policy committee meeting, we had the food service director, Martin, who's here, we can verify again, but he said we would lose money, right? Because this is, ultimately, it's a business, and they have to run and they have to make a profit in order to stay in-house. So if this policy causes us to lose money, how would you fix that? So, right, the options are we raise taxes to make up the difference. We can cut employees, or we can cut another program in the district. So I was just wondering, since you're the one presenting this policy, which option you believe would be best?
First off, we don't know if we will be losing money. This is we're looking at for 1 year. We haven't tried it, so how do you know we're going to be losing money? I don't want to get into a debate. I'm just presenting this to the board for 30 days.
Martin,
So, wait,
if you would
I
mind.
have a question related to that. If we lose money, then Val, are you going to say that we should take from the reserve? And then if we lose money, we'll reevaluate the program and go back to the 3 year?
How do we know we're going to lose money?
We don't. I said, but if we do, what's your plan? Do you have a plan if we lose money? Is it to pull from reserve and then cancel it? What is the backup plan if it's not profitable for the district?
I believe it's going to be profitable. We just have to be on top of it. I don't think we're going to have to be pulling from any areas.
Ms. Lorenzo, would you mind? I know we've gone through this before on, I don't know, many occasions. It seems like almost a year now we've been going through this since Cheesegate. If we do a 1 year policy, we would in fact lose money and lose merchandise and not be able to take advantage of programs where we have significant savings. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, my expert opinion states that we most definitely suffer a deficit with this sort of action.
Okay. So,
I start spinning the wheels as to how much of our inventory, our commodity inventory, once again, that we would have to remove from our shelves if this were to be enacted, and it's quite significant. Tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating.
okay. So if we,
Just did inventory last week, so it's very, at least I put it in the computer so the figures are pretty fresh.
okay, perfect, thank you. So Val, we now have the director of the food service department saying it's tens of thousands of dollars that will be lost, so we do know that actually. Again, I ask, how will we make up for that difference? Will we raise taxes, will we cut employees, or will we cut another program in the Gateway School District?
I don't believe we'll have to do any of it, Chad.
It's irrelevant what you think, and it's irrelevant what you believe, but we're looking for facts.
Well, right now, I'm just asking this to be put on 30 days display. And then at our next meeting, we can vote on it, and if there could be further discussion, we can vote yes, we can vote no.
And I have a question on number 3. It says dry goods, example, pasta, raisins, canned fruits. To me, canned items are not dry goods, so can you clarify, just so I know, because are we putting all canned foods on 1 year?
I think it's
Or is
non-perishable items. We're gonna now make perishable after a year, I believe.
Do we use canned green beans? What canned products do we use, Mr. Lorenzo? And are these included in the 1-year vow?
That language is examples given. We try to utilize frozen vegetables in our program for the most point. At the end of the year, for some of the commodities that may have been requested or have been canceled, and they're just offering you items that you didn't request, some of those may be some canned carrots and canned green beans. So we do have a few cases of such in our inventory currently due to those sorts of circumstances, but it is our program's preference to utilize frozen fruits, or should I say frozen vegetables when applicable. Other than fresh, we use, a very large amount of fresh ingredients on a weekly basis as well.
Well, isn't the shelf life of canned goods like years and years?
Yes.
So
And
hypothetically-
raisins specifically, I know there was a little bit of an instance where the Department of Health brought in with regards because of date markings on our raisins, and he kind of chuckled because, dehydration methods is one of the most ancient forms of preservation in what's the word I'm looking for? I apologize, but in civilization, a human civilization. So there's, raisins aren't, especially whenever they're packaged in 6-packs, cellophane wrapped. And so really the air's not hitting them again until you open those packages. So an item like that is, good for a very long time. And a lot of these bomb shelters and sort of things that they engineer foods to have a shelf life in excess of 25 years. I would like, and I'm no expert in that area whatsoever, but I would like to think you're going to see some pastas, some rices, some canned goods, those sorts of items in that sort of sustainability model.
Martin, did you order any food yet?
All the orders have been before, I think the second week of April was my very last
And
one.
how much of that came in?
Nothing yet.
So how much meat do we have up there right now?
It's hard to say off the top
Just
of my
the
head.
inventory.
As far as value-wise, just in general, just meat alone. In excess of $10,000 to $15,000. I'm just giving you an estimate. I mean,
So like, do we have 50 pounds of ground beef?
we have far more than 50 pounds of frozen ground beef.
What about any other kind of meat?
Well, we have, there's some chicken fajita processed, well, it's processed in the essence that it's cut and seasoned chicken fajita meat, like with a value in excess of $100 a case. I believe we have over 20 cases of that available. That was items that had come in at the end of this year.
Cheese?
We're probably sitting on excess of 20 to 30 cases of cheese of different varieties.
And we have all this excess food because,
The commodity program being what it is, as I've explained many times in the past.
explain for the people at home and in the audience here, the commodity program.
Well, school districts are allocated X amount of funds based on a defined number of lunches they served 2 years prior. And then they have USD has an equation that comes up with a monetary amount. You put in a request of, off of a shopping list, so to speak, of how many cases you want of each item, and it starts drawing down those funds. So you can spread it around, whether you want some frozen vegetables, there's even a fresh produce program, which we allocated excess of $25,000 into, with all the gray that was going on with our shelf life protocols that we were in the process of developing. Like the meats, cheeses, so, based on the menu cycle, based on current usage, you look at what you've gone through, where your menu cycle is, where you see it going, and then you try to make educated decisions based on what your current inventory is, what you're still expecting to come in. Keeping in mind, these items, the deadline, it starts in March, it's second week of April is, I have to be done, and that's to request items for the 17-18 school year.
Did you
Now,
just say you
no
have?
control. Go ahead.
Just want to clarify. Did you just say you have approximately a month, month and a half to purchase all the food for the entire year?
In the commodity program, yes.
Okay.
Okay, you gotta try to come up with.
And it may not come in
decisions.
until like
You don't
April
you
of
have
the
no
next year.
control. You have no control as to when it comes available.
May
to you.
become available April of the next year.
Correct. The only thing that's fixed is the price, and you request it, you're not even guaranteed to get what you ask for.
It's more of an order than a purchase, right?
What's that?
It's more of an order than a purchase, right?
It's a request, yes. It's not a purchase. In the end, it has a monetary value associated with it based on the inventory value established by the USDA. And so we don't have control of when we're getting these items. We have no control whether or not items are canceled. And then they go to replace these items with hodgepodge, whatever they have in inventory to make available to you. My experience has taught me it's best 99% of the time just to take what's offered to you and try to find an application for it, because once you either take it or you leave it and you don't get offered anything else. So you're leaving, valuable financial assistance, and for lack of a better term, on the table to help, sustain the financial feasibility of.
So if you leave it, hypothetically, which you don't do this, but hypothetically, you don't want the turkeys that they offer you, but then the ground beef that you wanted doesn't come in, and you don't have anything to serve, where do you buy it?
You buy it through a wholesaler.
And it costs how much more?
Typically, probably 50 to 100% more, depending on the market conditions. That's the beauty of the commodity program, is you're locking prices in.
So do you try to keep a little bit of extra food on hand because you know that could happen? Some of your items may not come in.
Well, knowing that the inventory, there's nothing wrong with this food, if it's, kept frozen, maintained frozen, et cetera, yes. I told the situation of a couple years ago where, if a school district refuses an item, it goes into a big kitty, and then they put out an announcement. All the school districts in the Commonwealth have an opportunity to request what's on that list and bring those items in. What's nice about our facilities here at Gateway School District is we have a vast amount of storage space. So I took it upon the department to take advantage of that situation, and I brought in a lot of surplus of items into our program at a minimum investment for just the cost of freight to bring it in. I think I used the term $25,000, maybe $30,000 worth of inventory for about $2,500 in freight possibly. Those don't hold me to those exact figures, but those are guesstimations. So yes, I took advantage of that, trying to keep our bottom line in a positive direction, as you know, with the PZERS situation with regards to personnel and that ever escalating financial restraint, not only on the school district as a whole, but our department also has to cope with those figures. It's becoming more and more difficult to manage a positive fiscal bottom line in the department.
Did the last administration's change in the mandatory menu items make it more hard to stay profitable?
Absolutely. There's the amount of snacks or a la carte type items we can offer the students has diminished significantly to the point where sales in our high school had dropped so much that when we had a job vacancy in that area, we did not replace the individual because the volume wasn't there. So we're looking to allocate those resources in another area, primarily our breakfast program, which you learned tonight we're looking to do some rather extensive modifications to at our high school.
Mr. Lorenzi, is it true that Gateway is the only school system that uses the commodity ordering, purchasing approach to buying food?
No, that's not correct. No, we all.
They all use that?
Anybody who participates in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program has the opportunity.
They all use the same approach?
You have the opportunity to do so. The fact that we have such extensive storage opportunity allows us to take more of an aggressive approach to those methods. Like, there's smaller districts, and that's what my background was before I had gotten here at Gateway. It gets to be the end of the year, and you need to, decide whether you're bringing the remaining commodities in or not, or you start paying storage fees for them per case per month, and it, escalates with time. those districts have to make the decision what they're gonna do, and typically what happens, they pick and choose what they're gonna bring in, and they refuse everything else, then that's what happens at the end of the year, everything goes in that big huge kitty, and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture puts it out, an e-blast to the entire Commonwealth of an opportunity stating this is out there.
Reduce
put your request
price,
in,
jump on it, right.
and you have 30 days to bring it
An
in. That's one of the
right.
stipulations
Small
as
window,
well.
right.
You have a small window to order it, get it in, and clear, they want to clear their warehouse is what they're looking to do.
All right,
So,
so
are you-
what I'm
oh,
trying to
sorry,
get to is an artificial minimum window for purchasing and retaining items helpful to what you and the other school districts in the United States do?
Would you mind repeating that question? I'm sorry.
Right.
I apologize.
So does an artificially designed protocol for disposing of purchased items help or hinder what you and the rest of the school districts in the United States do?
That sort of policy would be a significant hindrance.
Right, so,
I mean, I would have to suggest if it were to be enacted and we have tonnage of food that's going to be removed from our inventory, that one, getting the Department of Agriculture involved, whether or not they're going to reallocate it. Two, if we are disposing of it, do we have the dumpster capacity to deal with it? Do we have the human resources to?
in Gateway
physically
School
move it?
District, we have no authority over the U.S. Department of Agriculture, do we?
Correct. They would first make the first decision as to what we're going to do with that food. I have to clear it
Right.
first.
So what I'm hearing you say, Martin, is that you're trying to take advantage of the good equipment that we
market.
have here, the cost of the market, take advantage for the
The flow.
benefit of the district's financial situation and the availability of food, and because you have space, so you're ordering, which is a kind of a reason of, which would answer why we have some food left over from last year. But your goal for doing that is because you have storage, you don't know if you're going to get everything, you want to make sure you have enough food for our kids, and you're trying to make business-conscious decisions to keep your department profitable.
And the students healthy. And the students healthy, right.
That's our goal.
So what percentage of the food comes from the commodity program?
Well, the commodity program entitlement, I believe, we're looking at like $120,000 in value as a percentage of the total. I wish I had the inventory documentation with me, I can tell you everything. As the total purchases in the food. When you got bread, you got milk, those all get lumped in the food. If I had to put a number on it, I would say it's probably 15 to 20%, and that's a complete guesstimation.
So 15 to 20% of all the food comes from the commodity program.
That's a guesstimation.
But there's stuff that's not included. Like if you would take away, how many commodity type foods? What's the percentage of that?
Well,
You know what
commodity
I mean?
type food.
Like you gotta take away the breads and milks and all that, 'cause that's.
Well, that's not a commodity.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Based on
The
this
commodity
program.
type foods, how much comes from the commodity market? Is a better,
I mean, I think the 15 to 20% is applicable, even though you could make the argument, well, pasta is a commodity, but if you're getting it from a wholesaler, you're not getting it at the commodity rate, whereas we tend to get all of our pasta from the commodity program at a much more economical price. We're talking probably about 50% less than what the market, at least this year, that's what struck me, that number is probably about 50% less. So as far as what comes available to us as an entitlement through the Department of Agriculture, I mean, I can get you a more precise figure to Mr. Schott if you'd like. I could look at those numbers very easily and give you something instead of relying on a guesstimation, which I would prefer to give you precise figures.
So just to be clear, the entire discussion this evening regarding how we get the food comes from the commodity program, which really only 15 to 20% of the food comes from the commodity program.
That's correct. I mean, we
Okay.
turn over a very large percentage of the food that comes in every week on a week or bi-weekly basis.
Okay.
It's the commodity items that are manufactured and packaged with the intent of it sitting in storage for a period of time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And if 20%, so a fifth, Stephanie was pointing out, if those costs were, I don't know, 50% to 100% more, that would obviously have a drastic change on the budget, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I have 3 last questions, and I'll be done. You believe that the 3-year policy is where we should stay? Is that an accurate statement?
That's what was recommended, yes.
Okay. Paul, as our business manager, you believe purchasing the same goods for 50 to 100% less that's a good business decision?
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Short, this is under board resolution, so I'm assuming this is not the recommendation of the administration. Is that accurate?
We were in favor of the 3-year at this point.
Okay, so not recommended by administration. Food service director who deals with food is against it. Business manager thinks it's a poor decision. We have absolutely no data to back it up. Hopefully this gets voted down. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks for the discussion, I appreciate it, but I would at this time just like to call a vote for putting this on for the 1 year for the frozen meats, the 6 months for the processed, pasteurized, and the 1 year for the canned goods.
Roll call, Bonnie?
Oh, is there a second, please? Is there a second?
We have a motion.
We have a
second.
motion. Mr. Nola?
No.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
I'm not sure how to vote because I'm not sure what would stand if I vote yea or nay.
No
This-
means
No
it
means
doesn't
you-
go on display. Yes means this policy goes on display for 30 days.
The answer, do you like the 1 year or the 3 year, basically? is what you-
No.
Mr. Stubenbort?
No.
Mrs. Warning?
Yes?
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Yes.
Mrs. Cerrucci?
No.
Mr. Lapsevich? Mr. Lapsevich?
George?
Mr. George?
You there, George?
It's a time.
I think we
He might be on
those.
mute. Try again.
Mr.
George,
Laps,
you on mute?
Mr. Lapsevich, vote.
I can kind of hear him.
So guys, what do we do in the event of a tie?
With a tie.
Fails.
Motion dies.
Wait, Mr. President, let's try to contact him.
Yeah, I think that's what you should try to do.
Yeah,
George, are you
Mr.
there?
Lapsevich, are you
I
present?
can hear him.
He's saying something.
He might be trying to answer.
Mr. Lapsevich?
He's saying they're not answering. He can't hear.
Ask Micah to redial him or put him back on, okay?
You do it on a cell phone or a speaker?
Huh?
George?
So everything is working? Okay.
So we're out of time?
Motion to table.
Well, pick up the phone and then call him on the cell phone, because he's obviously here.
Is he on his cell phone?
Well, he's on this system, but
Micah,
He's yelling something.
did we
Yeah.
call him on his cell?
It sounds like a cell phone to me. I don't know for sure.
He says nobody's answering him. He's,
Short, George can give his vote.
No, sure.
Hello?
I can hear you, George.
we can hear you, George.
Mr. Short,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been yelling with my stitches in my back. I thought they were gonna pop. Okay.
Don't hurt yourself.
What are we voting on? This green cheese stuff?
No, we're voting on the 1 year policy.
This is a vote for Valerie's board resolution motion for 30-day public display for 1 year meats and cheeses, pasteurized processed American cheese 6 months, and dry goods and pasta 6 months. Yes or no?
1 year.
Okay, can I have the vote count?
Right now it is
It's
4-4.
Is it wrong?
Yes. George is the deciding vote.
Everybody wanted to know where we got our evidence. My evidence was walking through this freezer 3 times in
Yes
the
or no?
last 4, 5, 6 months. Produce down here, which I know was limited enough, it was 5 or 6 years old, even
Yes or no?
stuff that was 3 years old had an mold on it. I refuse, as long as I'm on board, to
So George,
I approve the 6 months to the year.
So
It says yes.
your vote is for yes to put it on for 30-day display. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
thanks, George.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Was he on a phone or on our?
We put them on cell phone.
Can I make a comment or no?
It's up to the president.
Let's
Yeah.
move along.
Fine.
Comments from residents on non-agenda
I have
items.
I have a board resolution.
You?
Yep, I do. So, I know this was voted down last time, but we'll give it another whirl. So I'd like to, I'll just present the shortened version, the abridged version, but I would like to bring up, again, the transparency issue. I don't believe that asking for 4 days' notice to other board members and to the public is exuberant or burdensome on any board member. And I think it's the right thing to do so that people have a chance to look at information, sleep on it, talk to others, gather data to reach their conclusion. So with that being said, I present the resolution that was on the last board agenda to establish a policy concerning the introduction of board resolutions by individual board members where 4 days' notice is mandated.
I'd like to second it, and for the purposes of discussion, please.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments? Roll call.
You have a question or comment, John?
That's why I second. I'm sorry. You went a little too fast for me. This was brought up before, and some people voted for it and against it, and I wasn't able to discern the reason that some of our faithful board members voted against it. So I would like to just ask those who voted against it, what was your reasoning? And please try to convince me, because I want to be convinced to do the right thing. So if we don't need a 4-day window, why? How could that hurt us?
I do believe you had a paragraph in there for emergency, could be overridden
There it is.
5-4 also, correct, John?
Correct. At any point in time, the supermajority can override if it's something like this evening where we have to hire teachers before the start of school. But I think Mr. Ritter is asking to the 5 members, so Val, Scotty, Steve, Stephanie, and George, who voted against the 4-day public display, what is the reasoning behind, and what is the rationale behind not giving the public 4 days' notice?
Well, I can speak to my almost 4 years on the board, but I've seen minority members of the board, majority members of the board submit a resolution the day of a meeting, and I feel like it gave them a voice, and even though it was voted down or it was voted in, and I felt that it was necessary for them to have that voice, because you also have to remember that the president sets the agenda, and I think it's good to give all board members an opportunity to add a resolution.
The board under board policy, it states that board resolutions can be added by any board member. That's not up to the superintendent or up to the president, and that's for that exact reason. That's why that exists. Policy. So where I pulled the 4 days from is under board policy. It states that if you'd like anything on the agenda, it should be submitted to the superintendent or the board president at least 4 days prior. So it's actually already in our board policy. We just don't follow anything because people bring it up under the reports at the end of the meeting with no public input, and then we go and we spend money on, right, the 360 group with nobody receiving any information on it. We buy air conditioner units in the middle of January.
All right, I've heard your side, and I really appreciate Stephanie's side. Could we go on to some of the other board members? What's your rationale as well? By the way, that was very convincing, Stephanie. Thank you.
I agree with Stephanie. It also hobbles board members in an unreasonable fashion. There are lots of times when board members have an issue of importance that they want to raise, and they put it in the form of a motion. It gets seconded, it gets discussed. If it can pass, it passes. So I agree with the issue she raised, and I don't want to artificially restrict board members' rights to raise issues, quite honestly, at any time. But if the issue that is raised is not palatable to the majority of the board members, they can simply vote it down.
But wait a
Is there a
second. Can I-
possibility to table a resolution for later discussion if it's brought up at the last
Sure.
moment and
Absolutely.
questions still need to be asked? So there's a,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Neil.
Well, I know
I'd
you're,
like to respond to that, though.
John has the floor.
hold your thought, write it down. And some of the other folks that voted against it, what was your rationale, please?
More or less the same thing. Why handcuff people? If people don't want to vote for it, they don't have to vote for it. They can be tabled, whatever. Sometimes things need to be done.
So I guess my interjection would be, doesn't the public have,
Well, just like that, we can't finish the sentence, we can't do anything. if
Yeah.
There's no,
You have to hold off.
they can't wait to speak and get it. Go ahead.
but you say that, you say the
I
same
didn't say
exact
you.
thing as the previous two.
You want to take it out?
My question is, does the public not deserve 4 days' notice? And we're talking about handcuffing. If it's something that needs to be passed, it states in the policy that the supermajority can pass any resolution. So it's simply to inform the public. I mean, so many times people come here and there's nothing on the agenda and then it's voted on. To look back at some of these things, it's actually extremely difficult to even find them because they're not on the agenda. They were brought up under board, so you have to look through the minutes of both study sessions and regular board meetings and dig through until individual board members' reports to see when things were passed. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars were done in this manner. So,
All right, so
In response to that, I'm so sorry.
that's a valid counter argument. Could you hold your thought, and you're holding your thought, Neil, and Val?
Yes, sir.
May I ask, what was your rationale for,
I feel the same way. If something comes up prior to, comes up afterwards, that we get the board packets and things like that, we can have an executive session, we discuss it, but then it falls flat, so you bring it up in public and you can have discussion there.
very good, thank you. Neil, and then Steph, and then back to Scotty.
Thank you, John.
My point is, I think that there's people hiding behind certain things, and here's my take on it. I'm just going to be blunt. I believe that there's times that board members contact other board members, and not all the board members, and try to formulate some type of coalition of things, and then they try to bring it to the meeting in their board report and wham it on somebody, when the people never even have, the people being the other board members, the people being the actual citizens of our district, do not have the time to even think about it, because I've witnessed it numerous occasions where it came up, and then they said, call to vote. We weren't even trying to discuss it. And it said call to vote immediately. That is just that obviously tells me that there was people, whomever the board members were, it may have been, us 4 here, or us 5, that discussed it beforehand, and the others didn't have an opportunity to even question it, raise a concern about it, think about it. That is not appropriate. I don't care what you say, and I understand that the answer is always, 5 votes wins, and that's what you guys are saying, 5 votes wins. But the real answer is, what their vote is what matters. That's what you want. You want them to stand at that podium and speak. You don't want to vote and get 5 votes. That's not the appropriate thing. That podium right there is the appropriate place. And you are getting rid of that podium by doing what you want to do.
Very good.
Sorry.
Well said.
Neil, thank you for your candor. Now let's go to Steph, and then I want George to speak, and if he can, then back to Scotty.
So the instances that I think of whenever I think of, a board member resolution coming forth on the day of the meeting, I think of Bob Elms in his late start for schools. He felt he needed to have that on the agenda, and for whatever reason, he wasn't able to get it on, and it was able to be voted upon. I think of the superintendent, and I do appreciate everything that you've done, Mr. Short, but that came from a board resolution, which I didn't know was going to happen. But, it happened, and all the board members had an equal chance to bring forth a resolution the day of the meeting. So I certainly understand your argument, Neil, and I think that your heart's in the right place. However, I just feel that, as an elected official, you have this right, and all of us have the equal right to bring forth a resolution the day of the meeting.
well, I just want to rebut that real quick. So Mr. Elms, who's in attendance, that example, under this policy, if he wants it on the agenda, he would give it to everyone 4 days in advance. Again, so if we get the board packet on Friday, it could be on for today. I mean, it's not a long period of time. I'm not saying, hey, put this on there 30 days in advance. It has to be on before the study session in order to be voted on. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying 4 days based off of the board policy. As you mentioned with the superintendent, that actually was on prior to the study session, which means that it was on prior to 4 days in advance. So both situations I don't think really call for that. When you're trying to say that board members can't put something on, that's completely false. Under board policy, if you read the board policy under the 0 section, it states the authority for any board member to put something under a board member resolution. That's why we have section G. It's resolutions presented by board members. That doesn't have to be approved. We could make it to close down the Gateway School District and someone could put that on a board member resolution without his approval or without Scotty's approval. So I just think that argument is null and void for the fact that there's already things in place that allow for any board member, whether in the minority or the majority, which I even hate to say because what the hell is the majority and the minority? I mean, aren't we all here for the same reason? So I just think that 4 days is applicable. I don't think there's been one valid argument against it. And I guess I would turn the table to say, the 360 group, what work have they done yet? And why did that have to be brought up under a board member's comments for something that hasn't even been started yet?
All right, there's a specific instance. So let's go to George, and then Scotty, if you would call George in, I'd like to get his 2 cents in as well, please.
Scotty?
George, are you still there?
No.
Yeah, I heard something.
No, you didn't
It's not
vote
coming
against
through.
it.
George, if you can hear us, we cannot hear you though.
Want to have something new? That's scary.
What else did you want to speak on?
Okay, and Mary Beth has a
Okay, you know
thought.
what, Nance, I'm putting him on speakerphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, George.
Okay. Hi, George, I'm going to put you on speakerphone, okay? Because it's not coming through. Okay. Same thing. Hi, George.
Hey, the situation with Mr. Ritter's comment,
Yes.
I'll answer as best as I can. How long has this been going on since the school board's been established with this couple days issue being put on the agenda? Has it been just since our board's been on, or has it been for years?
What was the question, George?
How long has this been going on? For years or just this board?
What?
If
This-
they want
Putting
4 days.
things on the
So-
agenda last minute.
The
George,
seeming.
all I can state is for the past year. So what I did was I looked at the past 2 years and looked at the amount of money spent, which is exuberant over the last year compared to the year previous.
I mean, this stuff hasn't been done before. I came on board 2 years ago.
Not to the extent that I can remember, where we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars during board reports. And I can only speak for the 3 years I've been on the board.
Okay, the only concern I have is that one of my board members have an issue, and it cannot make the 30-day notice, or it has to be put on the agenda within a 3 or 4 day period. In my heart, I feel it's okay, because if it's that important, and also, I feel this wouldn't be on discussion at all. If some things were put on the board memo now, and they didn't get their way, and that's the reason why we're putting this up to discussion right now, because one of our colleagues, were teed off and they didn't get their way, so they're going to try to make a deal out of it. But in my opinion, I don't see anything the matter with it.
Okay, so for the folks at home that weren't able to hear George, he said essentially he wondered whether it's a peculiarity of this individual board that seems to bring things up at the last moment and spring it on other board members, or have all boards previously behaved this way as well. And what was his other point?
I think that was it.
That was it? Okay, Mary Beth, back to you.
Well, I always call things like I see them. And I feel that the reason that Chad felt a need to bring up this resolution is really what Neil said, is that you know, we have a very new board. We're going on 2 years with a lot of turnover, myself included. And there's a lot of things to learn here. There's a lot of policies and procedures. And I was getting highly frustrated personally that we would be coming to board meetings and I would be blindsided by resolutions that weren't even presented during the board resolutions part of the agenda, but during the closing remarks. So you mentioned things that you think of. You know, the things that I think of were the Teamsters bonus of $250 of taxpayer money voted on during a closing remark after the community has left and wasn't even here to comment it. And it was the same night that we voted on the contract. I think about an employee specifically named to get a raise. I think about the unbudgeted money that we spent for things that weren't emergencies, the tree removal and the brush clearing. Yes, that stuff looks great, but there's no reason that it couldn't have been given 4 days' notice and allowed public input. Same with the ACs. You know, I mean, you and I had a candid conversation, as I do with pretty much anybody who I speak with. When you do things like that at a last minute and you take your fellow colleagues that you're supposed to respect and work together with, it breaks down the trust. So then we have a trust issue between board members, and when board members don't trust each other, that's negatively affects the school and the community. Because we are here to serve the school district, the taxpayers, the students, the faculty, the employees, and when we don't have trust between us, that damages everybody. So I don't think it's too much to ask that we, A, follow our board policies, B, have the responsibility to learn what they are. I mean, it is my job as an elected official to know the Robert's Rules of Order, to learn our school board policies, and to try the best that I can to follow them. And if I'm not following them, then I will take somebody who's been on the board longer than myself, like Steve or Stephanie, to tell me, you did something wrong, that's not the way we do it, and you have policies and procedures in place for a reason. So when we start to make up our own policy and procedures and we don't keep each other in check, I think it's bad for everybody. So I totally support Chad's resolution because I think any type of transparency is good for the community and it's good for everybody. And if this board wants to function as a team and function effectively, we all need to trust each other and we need to communicate with each other, not hide things from each other or bring them up at the last minute and try to sneak something past one another.
All right, I think I do have 2 more cents to add into this and then back to you for the actual vote. Like the rest of us, you know, I do want to do my level best to vote correctly on issues that are brought up. I recognize that some of them need to be brought up at the last moment. I feel blindsided sometimes by some of these that come up at the last moment. And so there are 2 ways to handle it. One is with a formal resolution as proposed by Mr. Studenbort. The other way is through a gentleman's agreement. That is, if you know you have something that's going to be, you know, controversial and it might offend or blindside some of your fellow board members, find a different way to bring it up. Okay? So even if this vote fails, we're still free to be gentlemen. Thank you.
We have a roll call vote.
Gentlemen, lady, it's the royal gentleman.
You're the one?
No, I wanted to say I think your heart's in the right place too, Neil.
Well, I just need people's brains in here.
And the vote.
The vote.
Roll call, please.
Mr. O'Donnell.
No.
Mr. Ritter.
Aye.
Mr. Stubenport.
Aye.
Mrs. Warning.
No.
Mr. Williams.
No.
Mrs. Byrne.
No.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Yes.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Okay, George. Okay, George, hello.
Your vote?
We're not vote, it's a,
And Mr. Nola.
Aye.
Motion fails.
Any other board members have any resolutions that they would like to bring forward at this time? Comments from residents on non-agenda items. I have 4 individuals that have signed up. The first one is Mr. Houston.
Good evening, Kenneth Houston, 108 Edgemere Drive in Louisville, PA. Couple things. For complete transparency, I'm the president of the NAACP office, cover 5 municipalities. I put by this district to bring minority teachers and/or staff into the district that reflects the population of minority students that you have. I asked this about 2 years ago, and I got kind of a wishy-washy answer. But I think that it's extremely important as the minority population of the district grows, that the population of professional staff reflects the minority students in which you serve. I'm curious to know that. Ms. Crump, I would like to ask you if you would be willing to.
Sure, I don't have a problem answering, and I appreciate your concerns. The process that we have is we get applications, and as you know, with any applications, it's illegal to ask them what color, sex, age. We don't consider that when we consider. As we stated tonight, we look for the most highly qualified candidates. We don't look at your age, your color, your race. We look for the most highly qualified, and we put them through a vetted process. We had some people for a long-term sub come in for 3 different rounds of interviews because we want to make sure that we have that. We have 4 open positions at this very point that we have gone through 30 extensive interviews for special ed and are not bringing them to the board yet because we don't have the most highly qualified person that we think is out there. That's our goal, or my goal, is to give to the board and this community the best that we can offer, no matter how old they are, no matter what their sex is, no matter what their race is. That's my obligation to this district.
So you're hiring people through the process of them applying through the job, for the jobs online? Is that your position?
We
post them?
We post them on the website, and we also use PA Educator, which is utilized by most teachers, teacher positions, because they know that all school districts use that. That's the best avenue for them to get their information out there. And the advantage to the school district is, just in our instance, we had some instances where 4 principals are interviewing. They're all looking at the same candidates. So instead of giving them paper copies, they have online access to go in and look at a person's credentials, a person's references, their work histories. Nowhere in there, though, does it state their race, their age. Some you can tell sex by names, but...
Are some of these individuals referred to you? Do this district get referrals? Do you get people?
We get paper applications that come in, and we also consider those also.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I would like to see that policy. My other concern is it has been brought to, first of all, I was totally taken aback at the fact that the process for the diversity director or officer, High Mucky Muck, has already resumed and the first round is taking place. I had contacted her in my conversation with an individual from the district, understanding that hopefully the NAACP would have a seat at the table to see the transparency of the district for this process. That did not take place, but that's okay. My concern is that it has come to our attention that as you all are looking for this specific individual, even though it's not required by PDE that they be principally certified.
No, it is required by PDE.
No, it's not.
And whenever you create, just so you'll have the information, whenever we create a new position, we submit that job description to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. At the same time we submitted the Director of Pupil Services position, we also submitted the job description for the Equity Director. PDE then evaluates that. They then tell us what certificate is appropriate and what is not.
So the position that you sent to PDE relevant to the diversity officer was the language that you put together in the district?
No, it was the job description that was posted on the website and that was approved.
Was the position description required by PDE? Did it come from the state guidelines?
We sent the job description that was written and reviewed
by the district
and sent it to them. Yes.
So, in other words, you all created the position based on what you all wanted in the district, and you incorporated it being an individual that's required to have a principal serve. Is that fair to
No,
say?
no, because when the job description was done, in all fairness to myself, I never sat on any of those equity, correct? You never saw me at those meetings because I did not know, I did not know at that time that it was going to a position. So I had to go back through the notes. I researched things that, discussions that were done in the equity plan, what we were looking for, what we discussed. And based on that information, that job description was written. Along with, I did get some help from Pittsburgh Public. They gave us some information because there's not a lot of equity director positions out there. So we're starting from scratch. So the information that was
When you say
gathered
there's not a lot of job equity positions out there, you talking about?
in the school districts, yes.
What school district? You talking more suburban, or you talking, because most urban school districts have diversity officers.
We contacted Pittsburgh Public. I also contacted 45 other schools for their HR and business officials asking for that information. And I also contacted the IU3 to see if they could give us some help with it.
Mr. Houston, did you hear something, that something's going on with?
Yeah,
the
I'm very
school district?
concerned as to whether or not this is being done in the transparency and fairness that it should be. I know there's a lot of pushback internally relevant to this position, so much so that it was even stated it should be a one-year position. My concern is that, as I understand it, there were a plethora of candidates that applied, which that's good. That's good news. My concern is whether or not the process of elimination, particularly for minority individuals that apply, is this having an impact on it? Because if it is, I am sincerely asking the National Association to come in and help me with this. Because, look, the fact of the matter is, I agree, we want Gateway to look absolutely superb. It's a wonderful school district. But, you know, you guys do a lot of stuff in the cloak of night. Let's just be honest.
I mean, if you have specific details or names, can you bring those forward?
What I want is, I want to know, is this being done fairly so that individuals that are applying for the position are getting a fair shake? That's what I want to know, because that's what our job is. And I want to make sure that the position description is not so that it would make it almost impossible for particularly minority candidates that are absolutely qualified with equity and diversity to get the position in Gateway. That's my concern. Now, in complete transparency, I've gotten a number of calls of individuals that we know are qualified, and they haven't even gotten, and to be fair, as I understood, it was phase one of the process. So I told them, you know, just hold on, you may get a call. But again, I want to know, for my comfort level, that this is being done correctly so I can report back to my board and say, this is being done fairly and it's complete transparency and there's no process of elimination.
All right, I wish
That's
if you have.
that's all I have.
All right, if you have any information to supply to us, please do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Elms?
Bob Elms, 1303 Foxborough Drive. Just to add a little bit of information to your past discussion. If you look at the policy with regard to the 4 days, that resolution has to be passed on to the president and the superintendent to be put on the agenda. And I personally know it has not been put on the agenda sometimes. The president has the power to not do that. If you want to make a resolution that says if policy or resolution is presented, it has to go on the agenda. That's where I would, I mean, I don't have a problem with what you said, but just make sure somebody does get the opportunity to put something forward, rather than it just being pushed under the rug. The other thing is, we've been discussing the equity director for 9 months. really the job description should be published publicly. It's such an important job. We've spoken about this for 9 months. We had an equity report we did 2 years ago. It clearly indicated there was a need for an equity director. Pittsburgh Public School put down a 5-year plan. Part of their plan did a wonderful job of describing what an equity director should have.
We got a lot of information from that 5-year plan.
He should, and this was in your equity evaluation too. You need to create a positive and supportive school culture, develop and implement a rigorous, aligned instructional system, provide appropriate instructional support for teachers and staff, and foster a culture of high performance for all employees. Now, you also put together a committee to help with this evaluation, and I'm not sure that the committee has been, and you could answer this question, or the board can ask the question and get the answer, whether or not that committee has been privy to evaluate the job descriptions and make recommendations. I mean, some of those people on that committee were very highly qualified to evaluate and speak to and do this job. So they would have been an excellent source of information.
The job description was presented publicly. When we post on the website, we do the posting and the job description is attached to it. So for any person who was looking at that time when we said we were going to post it and it was out there for that 2-week time period, they could see the posting, they click on the link at the bottom and it has job description. So the full job description would have been, they would be eligible to see that.
I've had a number of problems trying to find the website. If you don't know where it drops down, you never get there.
And we have had members of the Achievement Gap Committee be present during the interview process.
Okay. And were they given, you don't have to answer, but were they given a chance to feedback on that job description?
On the job description itself, no, that's a board-approved job description.
Okay, so the board did it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alves. Ms. King?
April King, 3437 Halmar Drive. Two things I came with today. One, as a member of the Achievement Gap Committee, we have been pushing for an equity director, and I was just hoping that we could kind of stay focused on getting someone in there before the beginning of the school year. Ms. Crump, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about the people who had applied for special education positions, like you see the need to get them in there, get them trained. And I was thinking it's probably the same thing for that equity director, especially if that person's going to have the opportunity to sort of open and be properly introduced to the district on day one. Teachers begin the 21st, I think. So I'm hoping to encourage us to continue moving toward that goal of getting someone in here. I have to tell you, long before the interview process, many of us had brought concerns about the principal certification because we were concerned that it would eliminate people that might otherwise be qualified. Some of us on the committee knew of someone who was on the committee who would be eliminated from that if it came down to, they have to have it or not. I actually went on the website and I looked for what's called CSPG. It has to do with certification. Gosh, I don't have it in front of me. But it has to do with the certification of any number of staff who would be entering the district. And there were about 108 things listed here. And it tells you, if you click on it, what their requirements are. There isn't one for the equity director. And being that there isn't one, I looked for the next closest thing, and it says supervisory area certification, which I guess the person would have to have would
Principal.
be a supervisor. There was a supervisor of curriculum instruction, one of pupil services, one of a single area, one of special education, one of vocational education. So there wasn't, I clicked on each one of those. The only one I thought to be close would be the one on supervisor of a single area. And on this particular page, it says a principal certification may be used for single area supervisory assignments at the building or district-wide level. So my question I guess I have is, if we're relying on Pennsylvania Department of Education to tell us whether or not the people that we hire have to have certain requirements, is it based on their website? And if it's not, if it's something that you may have called somebody and they gave you some information, is there any way we can know, for transparency's sake, how that came about?
As you said, you couldn't find anything on the CSBGs because for PDE and equity director or these types of positions are not common right now, so they're evaluating all that. As I also stated, whenever we open a position, we have to send it to PDE for approval. We can give you the contact person of the information we contacted. The reason we have to do that, because I have been in a district where we didn't have the proper certification, and then the district is charged for every day that that person works in the field. So we have to protect the district and the community. We're only going by the evaluation and the recommendation from PDE, and that's the best we can do. We're all new to this, and we're trying to provide the best to the district that we can. So we sent it to PDE as required, and that was their recommendation.
So someone at PDE said this person has to have this, and that's what
Yes.
they did. Thank you, I appreciate the clarification. I did not find the information.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure hoping that we can get that person in August 14th?
We would like,
August 14th, the next board meeting?
Hey, Bro, I just want to say one thing.
15th.
Yes.
And I've said this about the discussion, you know, there were a few interviews and the candidates weren't qualified, and I said it's more important to me that we get the right person than that we get the wrong person fast.
Oh, I understand.
I want the right person.
You know, Mrs. Crump, that brings up a question that I have. If we would find someone that's like on the track to become principal certified, but not quite there yet, maybe a month or two or something like that to go, is there some sort of a waiver that we could formally request from Pennsylvania Department of Education that would get us off the hook from being...
not to my knowledge for principal. What we can do and what we have done for a candidate was to send a copy of their transcript. Because when we looked at the transcript, we thought it would be equitable and fit the job description. So I sent it to PDE to be evaluated, to see if that person then would be qualified to do the position. We could do the same thing in that instance.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you catch that? She sent the copy of the transcript of the individual that I think that you're concerned about to PDE to have them evaluate if they will say if the person is qualified or not, and we're waiting on that response.
Well, can I ask, so you're saying PDE?
Step up to the mic, please.
PDE
Thanks, John.
told you that this was their requirement for a diversity officer in the district?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Eric, maybe? Somebody wants to speak
Somebody else
about
signed up to speak?
129 Penn Lear.
Oh, that's me.
Dave.
Dave?
Oh,
Sorry.
excuse me. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes. First of all, I want to publicly thank Mary Beth Carucci for inviting me to meet and greet the members of the Gateway School District Police Department. I was very vociferous in my objections to it last year, but I have a couple of questions and a couple of concerns, and maybe a suggestion. I don't know. As I've come to the subsequent meetings, I've noticed that we seem to be having, well, first of all, I'd like to know how many officers we have going into this year. How many do we have?
11.
Does anybody know?
We have 11.
11, okay. And when I came here last year, the original request was for 18 policemen, retired policemen, with 2 supervisors and 8 policemen to guard the 7 buildings, as I remember. I may be wrong.
It was 9 positions shared by basically 2 person per position, so it was 18.
Just 9, not 18?
No, it was 9 positions.
2 4-hour positions, so you have a 4-hour.
Think of it as like a
full-time,
job share
18.
part-time.
Okay.
18.
So if you had 18, what I'm concerned about is there seems to be a lot of turnover in the police department. And I know you're buying them vests, and we're buying them uniforms, and we're sending them to SRO training. And I don't know if there's anything in the contract that says if you get hired, you have to stay a minimum amount of time, or, you know, we're only 1 year in, and I think 4 or 5 have resigned. I don't know. But it is a concern of mine as a taxpayer. And I'd like to suggest what I suggested last year is that you have 6 to 8 guys with guns and maybe have other security people that don't carry firearms. And I'd like to make a suggestion. I don't know where you're recruiting your retired police officers from, how many there are. But from my background, I would suggest that maybe you could broaden your search to get a full complement of police officers by maybe looking for veterans with military police backgrounds or wounded warriors who may need part-time jobs and would be, because they're obviously got wounded in combat, so they have combat experience, and so they have some idea of how to secure buildings. And it might help the wounded warriors, it might help the school district. And maybe you'd only have to send them for, you know, have to get their $10 registration so that they could work in the school. Because you know, the police force is here to stay. You know, Mary Beth and I were, you know, at odds about this. I'm still not completely in favor of it. But when I was invited up for a meet and greet, they were very professional. The chief, Byron, was a hell of a nice guy. And subsequently, I came up in June. I was invited to speak at a class with one of the teachers, Sean Whelan. And I met some more officers. And next time I'll let you know in comment. But
Mr. Wheelan's tough enough.
I think you need to broaden your horizons on this, because from, like I said, from my background, there's more ways to secure a building and to secure campuses and have the kids be safe. Because Lord knows, I don't want anybody to get hurt. But I think we need to broaden our horizon on this. And that's all I ask.
David,
thank you very much.
I just wanted to answer 2 of your questions. You had talked about the SRO training and the vests. We did receive 10 vests donated from Day Auto. Debbie down there made a very generous donation to the school district. And then the SRO training, if they leave within a year, they are responsible for paying the district back. So I just wanted
to you know, and I know the vests are very specific. So, you know, if I had one and, you know, and you replace me with somebody that weighed 100 pounds less, you know, my vest wouldn't fit them, because you're not allowed to, not that you're not allowed, but, you know. A bulletproof vest is a very specific thing, and it's, you know, they've come a long way. Believe me, I wore a flak jacket overseas and put them in our backpacks because they were too heavy to wear. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed your summer.
Thanks, Dave. Scotty, can I just say one quick thing on that? So, you know, regarding the school police, we welcome feedback. We're constantly reevaluating the program. We really only have less than a full year. You know, we had a full year under our belt, but we really didn't become a police force until December. So, you know, the program is evolving. We're making some changes for next year. We highly value the input of the faculty and the staff and the principals and the parents on how to improve it. You know, we want to make it as good as it can be. And we want to keep our kids and our faculty and our staff as safe as possible. That's the ultimate goal. And we realize that not everybody's going to agree on exactly, you know, the way that that's going to come down, but we certainly want to always be evaluating and always being open to improvements and always open to people's ideas and suggestions. So I thank you for your input, Dave, and anybody else who has any feedback or input on the subject. Thank you.
Dave, I agree with you. I didn't support the police force from day one, and I agree it's going to be here. It's going to take time to fill those positions. You know, we're still new at it. We're still trying to find the right people. I think some of the retired people come in here thinking it would be a nice thing to do, and it's not like the job they had, and maybe they don't like being around the kids. So we have a high turnover rate. I don't want to say high, but we have a turnover rate. But I think in time we will be able to fill them all.
Well, I always wanted to have the policemen have a rapport with the students. You know,
Anybody else
maybe they
wish?
respect more.
Right. Anybody else wish to address the board on non-agenda items? Anybody? Oh, Mr. McIntyre?
Pretty easy, thanks. Rick McIntyre, Silver Road. A couple things. Ms. Crump, in talking about the equity director, the description for the position, you said you were in contact with Pittsburgh Public Schools and something said 45 other districts. I'm assuming all of whom have that position?
No.
Yes, some no.
We've not got a whole lot of feedback back.
Okay, the Pittsburgh in particular, would you say that our description is parallel with what their description was whenever they, because they do have an equity director, correct?
It's not actually an equity director, the person that I talked to. They do have a position, and we asked them for their job description. They did not send it to us, but we did pull a lot of the information off on their website. They have that equity position that talks about their 5-year plan, gives some of their goals, so we did pull some of the information from there.
Does their equity director, was he required to, or she required to have principal certification?
I do not know that.
Is there any way
I can find it. I can call you.
And then any other schools that you spoke to that actually had the director, did their equity director, similar position, were they also required by the state?
Right now, I've only heard back from Pittsburgh, but I'll keep.
Another question was brought up earlier, the 360 deal. I'm just curious, that was quite a while ago that all went down. Just wondering if there was any update, if we've had any information exchanged back and forth. I certainly don't remember anything coming to the board, you know, or to the public. Has there been any recommendations, any kind of movement at all with what they want to rezone or suggesting we should do with that property?
Mr. Dice could maybe update us.
Yeah, I can update you from two aspects. One, the title report, and two, the survey. The preliminary survey has been done now, probably since early July. The title report has turned out to be much more complicated than we thought it would be. I think there are a total of 16 different properties that come into play here. The title examiner contacted me last week, Thursday, Friday, and said that he was to receive the title report this Monday, yesterday. He said, give me a couple of days to digest it, and then he's going to sit with the surveyor to put together the final product of the Alta survey and have the title report in hand. That title report will withstand probably any scrutiny of anybody that may want to purchase or rent later. That really isn't necessarily a blockage to going forward and requesting Monroeville to rezone the property, but it would be nice to have it in hand. There's no race to the end here, so I would suggest to you that if we wait another few weeks, we'll get everything put into place and then make the application to Monroeville Council to rezone it from what it is now to C2, which is the commercial district. At least that's what the instructions have been at this point.
So their recommendation is to zone it commercial?
It's to the council. It's to the Monroeville Council. It goes first to the Planning Commission, then then there's a public hearing requirement in front of council, and then council votes on it. So it's a 3-step process to go through rezoning. I would suggest that it's best to have those things completed. I would like to have them completed before we start down the road with Monroeville Council, so that there aren't any loose ends when you present it to them. It's at that point that I think 360 comes into play, and I'll turn to Mr. O'Donnell to that extent, because he's the one that is kind of driving this.
We're the ones that requested commercial zoning, not Monroeville. We want
Correct.
that.
Yeah, the board,
But basically, we can't move forward until we know where we're going.
well, I think it's, you could, but I think.
It's speculation at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't make me comfortable.
Recommendation wise.
And really, just so everybody hears this, you know, the C2 district is the highest and best use of land in Monroeville. When I say that, I'm saying it purely as a business. I mean, I'm not talking education, I'm not talking residential. It's just that type of property is most valuable. And you can get more if you decide at some point to rent/sell the property. And then again, you just might keep it. You know, and again, this could have been done 20 years ago. We're doing it now.
The only other thing I would add to that is that 360, we will not incur any expenses with respect to the 360 group until we secure the C2 status from both the Planning Commission and Monroeville. When at that point in time, it's ready to market, and once it's ready to market, then we'll pull the
So we
trigger.
haven't paid them then?
Nothing.
So there's no reason for there to be any kind of exchange with them and us?
They
at this
have
point?
attended at least one additional meeting just to keep them in the loop as to respect, you know, how did the Alta survey turn out? Where are we on the other items? We're also looking, we will be looking at oil, gas rights. We know from the last discussion that rights under, I believe, 2 of the parcels have already been sold. They were sold with the original parcel, but there may well be other parcels that for whom the rights have not been sold. That's particularly important when we go to
When you say
market.
parcels that we've sold, can you elaborate just?
Well, the 26 acres is made up of a variety of parcels or lots, okay? That were originally owned by different people and were sold as a package to Gateway School District. It wasn't actually the school district at that point, it was.
We currently still own all these.
But we own them all.
Actually, Patton Township.
Patton Township.
Since the Gateway hasn't sold any of these lots?
No, we own them all.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, we,
One small parcel that was sold to PennDOT
yeah.
20 years ago.
But that's not part of the 26 acres, okay? So once this work is completed, then we're going to have to talk about oil and gas rights. We certainly want to know whether or not those oil and gas rights are available, because that may well enhance the value of the property. So the property is enhanced if the property is zoned C2. It's highest and best use for that 26 acres, and it will derive the greatest price as opposed to residential. And then in addition to that, if we're selling the gas rights, just say to 15 or 16 parcels, and the oil rights to those parcels can make them more valuable. And I also believe that Huntley and Huntley, is it? What's the oil and gas firm here?
Yes.
Huntley and Huntley. They had done some preliminary work years ago.
I'm sorry.
Had done some preliminary work years ago.
I'm sorry.
And we'll go and get that information, that's all.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to, because the buzzword around the road right now is fracking. And that's something that, you know, for us to be looking at this property as long as we have been or have been able to, and for the word fracking to just kind of come up now while they're out doing seismic tests around Monroeville. I know that as a citizen, it alarms me a little bit. I mean, so, you know, no matter what you say about fracking, if you're on this side, that side, it's a heated debate.
Gateway School Board has had no discussions about fracking. Just put that rumor to rest.
Sorry?
Gateway School Board has had no discussions about fracking.
Okay.
Just put that rumor to rest right now. I mean,
Okay,
regarding
you
this,
just said we were gonna look at the oil and gas
He's-
rights. We will?
yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not talking about fracking. It's not something we're discussing. We're talking about selling property. That's all.
Okay.
Values
If
of
that
properties,
property is
selling
sold
property.
For the oil and gas rights, the next logical step would be.
I think you're jumping the gun. That's all. Like
I'm
I
not
don't-
jumping the gun, I'm just asking now that, going forward, that we show better transparency than the Monroeville Council did recently with their seismic testing. That's all I would ask. Is that we're open with the public, and if there's gonna be anything about fracking, we gotta be well ahead of the situation and be completely 100% transparent. That's all I'm asking.
I
agree with you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none of reports, we'll start with Dr. Jake.
Just a quick educational update for the board. Today marked our beginning of the year principals meeting to kick off the upcoming school year. Some of the focus around our work is in line with Mr. Short's goal of ensuring that all classrooms in the district have effective teachers. And we're taking a look at the evaluation model. We're having principals go through Charlotte Danielson's model for teaching. And we're really instilling Mr. Short's goal that he started last year on August 9th. And principals are really embracing this idea that this year we're going to take the initiative and allow them to be instructional leaders. And myself and Guy were very excited today in meeting with principals with the learning that occurred and their level of engagement. And we're really looking for some positive things to occur throughout the school year.
Thank you. Mr. Rossi.
Got two things for you. With August comes back to school dates, so all the buildings should have all their back to school dates on their website updated. So I'd encourage the parents and families to check out those back to school dates, orientations, meet the teachers' nights, and all those sorts of things, so they can begin planning. And the second thing, we're excited to formally announce that we received the Dynamic Learning Project grant, which was recently approved by the board, I believe in May or June. We're now have some information to share with you and elaborate. I'd just like to read a snippet from the press release that we received. Gateway Middle School is one of 50 schools joining the pilot year of the Dynamic Learning Project, a national program supported by Digital Promise, EdTech Team, and Google, aimed at improving education equity by empowering teachers to leverage technology in more powerful ways. The Dynamic Learning Project is designed to invest in teachers. It's just not about access to technology, but how prepared teachers feel to meaningfully use that technology in their classrooms. The Dynamic Learning Project will sponsor and train a coaching fellow who will provide personalized, technology-based coaching to help teachers leverage technology in transformative ways. Mr. Telly just returned from California, was part of the grant, and had a lot of information to share with the principals. He's extremely excited about it, and I'm extremely excited about moving this forward, not only at Gateway Middle, but the entire district. So we'll keep you posted on as more information arises.
Thank you. Mr. Schott.
Nothing further, thank you.
Ms. Crump.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Short.
Things have been busy at central office. Currently, I passed around to the board updated enrollment numbers. Weekly meetings have been held with Patty Jovanovich Registration Office. She has estimated over 100 new enrollments within the district here. We have had some students withdraw. I do believe the kindergarten is up to 193 at this point. So last year we came in at 205, and we are hopeful that we will be able to eclipse that number of 205 from last year. That is all.
Thank you. Mr. Dice.
I'm not here.
Okay, board reports. We'll start with Mr. Stubenford.
All right. First wanted to say, great job getting to Barry. I know she had left. It's a long board meeting, so I don't blame her. But to any student that's willing to come before the board, we also received an email back in May about this very issue that I responded to. And it's great to see kids actually getting involved and, if they have a problem, to voice their concern, to come in front of, 9 adults and tell them, hey, here's my problem and can you do something about it? Unfortunately, this one it's just a nature of the beast, and this is the teachers union bumping process. So the board has no discretion over that whatsoever. But I do want to applaud her for coming up and obviously very, very well spoken. So we must be doing something right here at Gateway. She was amazing. So great job to her, and thank you for coming up and speaking. I want to thank Kelly Ethorn for getting a very generous donation from Brian Newman and GE. That's always helpful when the district can get a donation like that. Where to start with these ones? So we had talked about the 360 group, and I just want to piggyback off of what Mr. McIntyre had stated. If nothing's been exchanged, and again, this is really where my policy has come from. if nothing's been exchanged and they haven't partaken in anything, again, why does a policy like that need to be done at the dead of night under board members' comments, not open to the public and not even open to board members until about 15 minutes prior to the meeting in an executive session we were handed a piece of paper. We actually voted on a contract not knowing any of the specifics because we didn't actually have a contract in hand. Typically when something's on the agenda, you'll see Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, and you can actually read through the document in its entirety. We didn't have that opportunity. So again, that's really where the 4-day policy is coming from, and I hope people are willing to mull it over a little bit more, and maybe I'll have someone else bring it up and maybe it'll get voted and approved, but it's a real shame that we can't afford the public 4 days. The next one I wanted to touch on were the teachers. I know there was a very brief mention in one of the board reports, and I definitely know from speaking to the teachers that we are allowing them to purchase laptops for $500, their previous laptops. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because the way I see it is, if we have this great piece of technology, and it's obviously still valuable for selling it for $500, I would much rather see that offered to students and to the community as opposed to the teachers who we're literally handing another brand new laptop to. I know the teachers are able to do $50 a month payment on it, and I just think that if there's a student out there that could afford $50 a month, but they don't have a brand new laptop sitting at home, or even a 3 or 4-year-old laptop, that might be a way to get that technology into a house that may not otherwise have it.
We have not commenced the issuing or swapping out of laptops at this point for purchase. We drafted all the forms necessary to do so. Within policy, it does give the flexibility for the superintendent to make that recommendation. So at this point, we can have discussion amongst the board members to do so.
Yeah, and I know at the last meeting we had approved a disposal, and it states that board members will be notified before anything like that occurs. I would just really like to even just test the temperature. Maybe no one in the public is interested, but if we have someone that could benefit from having that computer in their house, I know there's other computers that we'll sell, and we've done that with the old school, the colored Macs and stuff from
iPads as well.
Yeah. So if there's a way that we can get them that nicer piece of technology, especially on a payment plan where they might not otherwise be able to afford something like that, that only benefits the students. So
I can sit
just
down
if we
with
can look at that.
Mr. Brown.
Okay.
And,
Before we leave, I think that's a good idea. You're saying, am I wrong, you're saying the public, but are you really meaning the students?
Yeah, the students.
Moms,
I mean,
yeah.
obviously,
Right.
the fourth grader's not going to pay $500, but if their parents says, hey, I can do $50 a month, I can't do $500.
Okay.
That's a huge.
Yeah, I agree. Give it some thought.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not even sure, I'm pretty sure that the majority of the board is in the know here, but Minerva has put on display their stormwater management, their MS4 document. And that might have even occurred before some of these board members were on, when the initial talk started.
I think you're correct, yes.
But the district's liability as presented at that one meeting, and I confirmed this with Mr. Shaw and Mr. Short, if this plan were to go through is $73,000 annually.
Significant, yes.
And that's a fee, a tax, however you look at it, that's money that the district has to pay Monroeville each and every year during this plan. So
Among other entities around Monroeville.
Correct. So I just want the public to be aware that this isn't something that's just affecting you. It's also affecting your church, your school, the municipality itself. So everyone is responsible for paying this fee. Unfortunately for us, the only way we receive revenue is through taxes. So that leaves us with the decision of $73,000. Do you cut a teacher or do you raise taxes? And that's an unfortunate situation to be in. So I just wanted board members to be aware of that, and hopefully we'll hear more from the municipality. I know we haven't heard anything since that first meeting, but Gateway is one of the largest. We're definitely one of the top 20. I believe we're one of the top 5 individuals that would be, or corporations that would be affected by this. So again, that's $73,000 that we would have to pay. So I just want the public to be aware of that, the board to be aware of that. I know obviously Paul's been kind of planning for that moving forward. That might be an additional expense we have to deal with. So hopefully we can reevaluate that with Monroeville, possibly call an intergovernmental meeting, and see if we can can address that, that would be.
I want to say 2 years ago, we received notification from the municipality of Monroeville. I contacted Mr. Shaw. I also made some phone calls to the mayor, I believe, and maybe Mr. Hugus. Paul attended the meeting.
Yes.
With
Mr. Brown.
number of other representatives from
The mall and others.
hospitals, I believe, as well.
Correct.
And we were kind of taken back by the amount.
Yeah, it's a large number. I mean, the mall is paying over 6 figures. That's not, it's not good for business when they're already at 40% vacancy. So hopefully we can address this with Monroeville, and I know they were open to having that meeting first, but we've never heard of it since then. So if we could possibly do council-wide and a school board-wide public meeting, I think that might be a good way to address it and discuss it. The last thing I wanted to touch on briefly, there's a group on Facebook called Monroeville Community Cares, and they have like over 1,000 followers. A lot of the PTOs are involved in posting things just happening in Monroeville and within the schools. And they had brought up a recent article about human trafficking and how that's effective and how that's prevalent in Western PA. I know in talking with Mark Rubino, the president over at Forbes, or Dr. Rubino, that Forbes does a very good presentation. I took part of it as part of the first responders that they did that to, and I had reached out to him. He's open and willing to have his staff come in and do a presentation. A lot of the other parents on there talked about cyber safety, social media tips and safety, what parents should be looking for as their students are engaging in these things. And I've also reached out to the DA's office, and one of the assistant district attorneys called me, and they might have a person that is willing to come and do that. So I just kind of wanted to float it out there, see if maybe the district could sponsor it, or if we could hold it up at the auditorium to inform the public. I figure with the school starting, it would be a good time to invite everyone from all the schools. If you're interested, if you want to learn more about this, we have great entities that already know a whole heck of a lot about it. With that, I will end my report.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport. Mr. Nola.
Yes, I have a couple of quick things. I would hope that the board members would reconsider the 4-day policy. Not only do I think it's the right thing, I think it makes us look good, and it makes the public have more confidence in us. So I hope everybody would just reconsider it. I'm sorry. I'm just going to be blunt with all of you. It looks like you're hiding something when you don't do it. It's just the way it looks. I mean, I talk to people out there, and they think you're hiding something. So I hope that you would just reconsider it. The next thing is about the policy on the food. I'm asking for someone, probably Martin and or Bill somehow, to keep track of the cost of the food that we get rid of, that we, the change in price from what we did in previous years to this year. I want to know, and I basically want to know,
The economic costs.
every month, I want to know what's the difference and what's it costing me. As a taxpayer, I want to know what's it costing me to have this policy, basically, is what I really want to know. So what I'm asking for is, what did the food cost me last time? What's it costing me this time? What food in there am I throwing away that I would have not thrown away? I want to know all of those details. I want to know how much food. I want to know the cost of all the food. Everything. Every single thing that we do. That's what we should do.
And I assume that's if the policy passes.
That's where I was going.
Well, wait a second. Yes,
30-day
because
display.
the bottom line is this is going to be on 30-day display, and then we're going to be enacting this.
And then at that
policy.
point, I would have to have conversation with the board because school would be underway. Martin, the food service department, would be operating, of course, with the commodities that I would assume would be in place. So we would have conversation of, whether or not we kind of grandfathered this in for second semester, ultimately starting at that point in time, but that's for further conversation. But yes, that would happen.
No, I understand that, but I think that we need to make sure that not only the board knows, that the public knows. This is costing money. I want people to know. I want everybody sitting out there and everybody else to know what it's costing me. It's only the fair thing to do. I mean, the bottom line is, it was recommended by every professional that we have here to not do it, but we did it. So if we did it, and it cost me money, man, it really just doesn't seem right. Something seems funny about that when we have professionals telling us not to do it, but it's gonna cost me money to do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a simple thinker. And whatever. I think this is why people get bad reports on their, the government websites and all that stuff. I think that's what happens.
Well, maybe people want to know how much it costs.
They're gonna, I'm hoping that they find out.
Me too.
Okay. On a better note, I believe, there's no school in the summertime, but especially the administrators, but it's everybody too. It's actually the entire community, but it's the entire school community as well. But it's mostly the administrators. The amount of work that they put in is phenomenal. It's extensive. You know what I love to see? You guys may think that it's bad stuff. I'm going to tell some of the people in the public, I don't know if they know or don't know, but we get a board report on every Friday. And basically every department, or like the assistant superintendents, they tell us, things that they've done that week, things that's going on, changes that are happening. It's extensive, and I appreciate it. And I like reading all those. It keeps you informed. It keeps us informed, and then we can relay the stuff to the people that we know or the people that we see. But just because school's out doesn't mean that the district's off. The district is doing phenomenal work in the buildings and grounds, in the curriculum. I want to especially comment on these two guys over here. They have been doing some phenomenal things, from what I can tell, over the last couple months of coordinating how the curriculum's going and how we're going to be functioning as a school. Under Bill's coordination and under their guidance, I think that they're making a significant improvement to Gateway Schools, and I just wanted to congratulate them publicly for that. Thank you.
George, can you hear me? Are you with us still, George? In the meantime, hello. Okay, George, you're up, buddy. We can hear you. George?
It's not.
Hello? Can you hear me, George? Here, we'll get back to you, George.
George, I'm going to put you on speakerphone, okay? All right, go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, George.
We can hear you.
Can I help you?
I'll have a Whopper?
George, it's up for your board report.
Board report.
Yeah, I understand that. Sorry I had a miss tonight, but it was my fault, my search, and he cut me too long, so I had to stay home. But the thing is, thank you for letting me be on the line. And another thing is, behind Mr. Nola, there's some beautiful pictures behind him that I can see from my game room. I don't know why Mr. Nola didn't mention them, but they're the most beautiful ones I ever laid eyes on. And is Mr. Bob Brown in the audience?
Yes, he is.
Can I see him a minute?
He's waving to you.
No, I want to see him face to face.
Stand up.
I got a question to ask him.
All right, he's listening.
Go up on
Bob Brown,
Yes.
Go ahead, George.
I I have to tell you the outstanding job he did this summer, even though I've been out of commission, but I've been getting all these reports and everything, and I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome, and everybody have a good night, especially Mr. Bruce Dice.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, George.
Bye-bye.
Sarucci.
I don't have anything. Hard to talk to.
I want to thank Scotty and Valerie, Mary Beth, Neil, John, and actually John's wife. We had an opportunity as board members to go out and take a look at some of the things that the Building and Grounds Committee has been doing over the past number of months. And to that end, I'm asking John if he'd be kind enough to sort of deliver the report.
Oh, boy, there's just too much. The long and short of it is, when you come back to school, you're going to be cooler, you're going to see prettier colors, things are going to look cleaner and more trim, the water's been changed in the pool, and on and on and on. There are so many things that have been done and done well by Mr. Brown and his team that I think it would behoove us to collect a bunch of those, put them into some sort of a report, and offer them to the district. Some photographs, maybe have a helicopter fly around and take some pictures of it, put it up on the front page of the website so that people can see some of the improvements, such as the air conditioning, which is huge. So that's the brief report, because there's just, they put a roof on.
Two roofs.
Right on top, right, both of them. So I would like us, if we could, to have someone formally write up the list of things that have been done and the list of things that are still yet to be done, because it's been huge. We were just wowed over and over again as we got to see it. And I know the kids are going to be happy when they come back. But the problem with that is summer's almost over right now. So in my report, what I'd like to try to do is insert an extra 30 days into August. We'll call it the month of Scotty. Just put it in there. Everybody needs 30 more days off because the summer's gone too fast. I like it.
That's my report.
The month of Scotty, where we stop.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Rader, you more to add?
And that was my report too.
I'd
Just
like
the
to,
tour.
I forgot Ms. Baumgart over there at the end. I apologize.
That's
Do you have anything to report tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Williams. As we continue to wrap up the summer, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge both the early literacy and the extended school year program for the summer of 2017 that has come to an end. The program this year was a success, and I would like to take an opportunity to thank all of administration, staff, and students for their hard work and dedication to the program. I would specifically like to thank the following community agencies that worked with both programs: Westmoreland Obedience Training, which offered and brought service dogs to the program to work with the students, and they had an opportunity to read to those service dogs, and also the Monroeville Public Library, who brought STEAM activities to our students this summer. So again, thank you.
On that, I just want to add one other thing, because I saw this on Gateway's Twitter, so whoever's managing that is pretty cool. The football team and also the girls soccer team, I saw were reading to the literacy program and stuff, and that's just really cool to see the little kids' faces light up when they have, the 17-year-old, whatever, this going to be senior soccer player, reading to them and being participative. So great job by all students involved and all coaches that made that effort to do that.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, I want to be real quick. Coming here tonight, the band was practicing, getting ready for the opening game, practicing for all their just all their performances that they're doing, and that school's right around the corner. The midgets are outside practicing, the cheerleaders, the little football players. Yes, it's here. We are in. Kelly Ethorn, thank you again for coming to Gateway with all your givings and donations. I know it's almost like Christmas is what I've heard from principals. They're really happy with everything out there. I will set up a intergovernmental meeting. I will touch base with the municipality. One thing that did come to my attention was we had the fireworks moved this year to Monroeville Park, and there was a lot of congestion and everything. A lot of people went to our student parking lot to watch the fireworks. I had I don't want to say tons, but I had many phone calls regarding that the fireworks were ruined because of our lighting system that was put into our student parking lot where they were at. And they're telling me, and I says, well, I think that's great to hear because this is why we replaced all the lighting. I mean, the lights are much brighter, so, Steve, thank you. Mr. Brown, thank you for getting the lighting. I mean, you know, that's.
No, we can't turn them off.
Positive, you know, so, I mean, things are really coming along. So, you know, thanks for everybody, what they're doing. Just a reminder for all the students that are participating in athletic programs and band, everything, make sure your athletic packages are turned in, your physicals, everything turned in. And with that, George, feel better. I feel lost with you not sitting next to me, but we made it through it, so feel better. And Nance, you're a gem taking care of them. Bless you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to thank John for helping me run the meeting tonight. And with that, I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
Before we do that, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session for personnel to discuss teachers' contracts.
Second.
Before we do, could I ask Miko just to come in, just to give an update on the computers and the phone system with what's going on in the...
Yep. So, Miko.
Miko, go ahead. Just an update quick on the computers at your command and the phone system, how everything's going.
Yeah, so we received all the teacher laptops. We're in the process of handing them out now. We have well over half the teachers done. Now we're starting to focus more on other support staff that we get laptops, administrators, those type of people. As far as phones go, the phone cutover happened the end of last week. Out of the 500 phone numbers, we have about a dozen that did not transfer correctly. We're working on those. The majority of the phone numbers are working for both incoming and external calls. We're still in the process of deploying, redistributing other hardware in the district, but we still plan on being ready for day one, ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
As we go into executive, I just want to let everybody know that there will be no further business discussed after our executive session.
Correct.
And we'll come out and adjourn from there. So, meet back in this room in 5 minutes. Is that good?
Works.
Little break, 5 minutes.